We're here today to take a look. A lot of times in the application what happens is that the importance of one is conditioning our welds, meaning making sure that our welds are completely to a silver nickel type finish and finishing them off. The other thing is too is that properly using the fact of weld through primer in an application. Here's a good example that a box side was put on prior from before, and you can see all the rusting that has occurred because that this individual who technician put this together never used the weld through primer. So now the other thing is too is if we come to the back side over here, you can see that, and I was able to remove the rubberized undercoating, but the rubberized undercoating itself, they just went ahead, sprayed it up inside of there, never at all conditioned the welds itself. Sure, it sealed them off, the oxygen, but likely in a situation there, if it was in a high humidity day or an opportunity that a rust spore could land on there, we could have that whole box side would have been totally rusting back through, and probably in a short time. And if you shoot inside of here, you can also see all the rust that's inside the wheel, the actual lip here area. All the rust all the way down through. Then you can see also in this taillight pocket assembly all the rust that was already starting to form on this panel. All through here, all down through here. But there's an example how important, once again, that we had to learn to knowing how to condition. And we're going to get into conditioning because we're going to do a live example of a couple vehicles. So we had a chance opportunity to see, once again, what's our adjacent panels. We actually talked about the fact of the heat that's being administered. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get in and actually do a repair procedure here of going in and cleaning up these welds. We're going to show some different things here that we need to talk about. We'll talk about our little crud disc. We'll talk about our XTs. Then we're even going to talk about a Scotch-Brite. We'll show some different examples of that, how technicians will use these. Well, what's interesting, especially now with the belt sander, has the capability, and you can come around here and we'll show the audience beforehand. This would be a very simple and expensive right now with what we have here with a belt sander. But if we had something as of the XT here or something in that nature, sure, I could probably whittle that down and wear it out, get it small, but what else could I maybe possibly destroy, and especially this bracket to the light. I'm sure I can use something in the crud application to get down inside of here, but how am I going to get there? You can see here with the attachment point, how's that tool ever going to get in there? It's not gonna. So there's a good example where the tool will allow. Because let's face it, if today is to improve that cycle time, we need to continue to improve the touch time. So let's go at it here and we'll take a look at it. Get down inside of here, Joe, we can actually see how nice the metal is. The metal is actually as shiny as a nickel, which is a good point here. Now let's show something here, I think, to the audience. Okay, so now if I was going to go ahead, once again, here's our weld here, and I'm going to use a Scotch-Brite to this area, because this is what happens a lot of times in our field. Okay, so now if we look at that, look at the difference here, and I hope the camera can show the difference of but the actual steel almost looks like aluminum, as shiny as it is. So you can tell that we still have some impurities from the welding that is done on this actual weld that's up above here. You can see that it's how important it is that we definitely get these weld areas as shiny as the nickel is what we're talking about there. And very critical. Let's do a couple more here, and we'll go back over this one now so we can see once again. You can definitely see a big difference. Here's what's interesting. You can look down inside, the camera can get in there. There's a difficult area. So now what would happen, let's talk about, because I don't think we've discussed this well enough. What happens if I don't condition that? Now we have to talk about is that when that oxygen that's in the air, gets onto that area, is going to cause, definitely known as rust, when oxygen and moisture come together. So now, if I don't condition it, so let's talk about what I need to do is definitely get in there to be able to go at this attachment. Well, you can see in the belt sander this way, it has that capability. I could get in this way to be able to attack that. So we're going to give it a try this way. So let's give it a shot and let's see. So get the camera down inside, let's take a look. So you can definitely see that we were able to get to it. So it has some great opportunities to get into some tight areas. Let me get lined up there and then I can pull back. There. The other thing we have to continue, and I want to continue to stress this, is that when we're welding, the extremity of the heat that we're getting up to, the chances of that burning back. Now we have to talk about what's the next procedure step, because we're going to have to come back over. We're going to have to get with our paint manufacturer, follow the proper procedures, and using self-etch, using primer surfacer. But let's talk about then what's the next step here. What do we need to do? Our next procedure, what we need to follow up with is some form of either something like some 80 grit on the exterior portion to feather edge that out, or it would be even 180 to continue it out there, to making sure that we have all of that area completely sanded, and any of that paint, the chances that it's perfectly feather edged, because we don't want any of the solvent from the paint company with their products to get underneath it, which they would be able to tell in more of a detail. So what we want to talk about is once we get to this condition point, then we want to follow up 80 grit, going back over even with some 180 grit, just to make sure, to allow that enough of that primer area, because you want to be able to make sure that that primer is adhering to a mechanical step. The difficulty is, like we showed prior from before, is getting to these welds up in here. How would a tech get up there? Likely he won't. It would be very difficult for him. And if he does, he might use a Scotch-Brite, but we were able to show once again what a Scotch-Brite is going to do to a weld, because we got to make sure that we get all impurities completely from that metal. So here we're going to do, we'll go ahead and attack this now. So give you a chance, why don't you take a look inside of there so you can see how far it goes up. I don't know if you can get up in there, but you can see now that how the welds are conditioned. Those first four, the one all the way up to the top, and then all the way down through. So you can tell that the tool definitely gave some opportunity to get up inside of there, because a human arm, especially mine, won't reach up inside of there. So that's a good example of way of just once again showing the importance of conditioning a weld. So you can see that definitely it takes a lot of intensive labor to do this type of repair, and how important it is, because let's face it, this portion of this box side still becomes that adjacent panel to the outer skin. Another example once again of how important weld zone areas of an adjacent panel. Here's we got an actual inner wheelhouse assembly area, and you can see here how the welds were actually penetrated within. If you look on the back side, we can also see of the welding going on, and also the actual damage to that as in a form of damage that would have been created through the welding. So we got some paint that's definitely been removed, and we're from the surface. So we're going to have to remove that paint and properly condition that weld, once again, as shiny as a nickel. So we'll go at this here and see how it goes. Over here so we can get a good shot there. At least you can see how the welds are cleaned up. Definitely, once again, shiny as a nickel. What's even a critical factor we even need to point out is something even here. We still have some actual left of that burn, that penetration down inside. You can see it through here. You know how important it is even to get all of that, removing everything and making sure that it's completely clean all the way around. That's what we can see here. So that's another some examples.